Greetings and salutations, and welcome to episode 191 of Ref the District. I'm Nathan. That's the Stoner. That's Trev. And we have a victory podcast for the first time in, gosh dang, nearly a year. And of course, that means it's the onesie time.
The onesie has made an appearance.
We got the onesie rocking it on here for this episode of Ref the District. We'll be revisiting that victory here in the warm-up called Kicking It. And then for the cool down, it's Run the... Nope, that's cheer. Why didn't I have the beep ready? Ball. There we go. Run that ball. That will be the cool down because that's where we're going to be talking about how Washington needs to win. Things a little bit in reverse today. Because we will have a guest. Anthony's going to be joining us from the Orange and Black Insiders, and that's what we'll be talking about Monday night in the game. So it's going to be a fun time. Of course, we have everyone with us here live as we stream live every Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern on YouTube and Facebook. We appreciate everybody all the way in the chat. You guys have been blowing it up so much. It's fun to kind of catch up as we get back at stage. So we appreciate everybody in there. Grimjaw Coach, Todd, Locked on Law, JG, Wes, and everybody else who, I mean, you guys are going to town in there. Nathan is in the house as well. So we appreciate everybody joining us here live. You, of course, can join the conversation with us live here on YouTube as well. But if you miss us, don't hesitate to make sure you leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening to us on your favorite audio platform, a rating and review. So we are wherever your favorite podcasts can be found as well. I think one more housekeeping thing, and that's the BLEAV sponsor, Bet Online. Nice. Head on over to Bet Online. Use the code BLEAV and get yourself in on the action when it comes to everything NFL, including live, up-to-date, information as you're betting and doing all that stuff, trying to get the Bet Online ad up here, but I can't find it. So we're just going to wing it still. So, but yes, use the code BLEAV, BLEAV over at Bet Online. Bet on those games. If you bet 7 kicks were made by Cybert, you're a multimillionaire. What are you doing? Listen to us. We should be listening to you. Of course, that's crazy town, but that's exactly what happened this Sunday against the Giants. Fantastic victory, guys. That you guys had an instant reaction. I was able to catch that. It was great. I felt differently after watching it.
Yeah.
I was with family. I caught some of it at the bar, and then there was nowhere where it just didn't feel right, driving home and then rewatching and stuff. I was like, I don't know about this. And then I started sleeping on it. And I was just like, guys, we've got a W.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's a lot of good to take from it. What are you guys thinking about it 3 days removed now?
I feel a little bit better than I did after instantly reacting to it on Sunday afternoon around 4:30. I didn't rewatch the whole thing, but I'm on Twitter all the time, so I'm just browsing and looking at other people's opinions. And when I would say that, I mean beat writers or stats guys or blue checkmark people, So how I'm feeling today is we got a W. We moved the ball down the field. We didn't punt. We scored on every possession. Yes, of course, I still would like to see touchdowns, and I feel like we could have scored some touchdowns. Like Stunner said, once we get down with the 5, we're punching it in there. Well, that game kind of made Stunner look like a liar. But I see what he's saying because we got ourselves in position every single time to do that. So it looks like the offense is coming together a little bit better than Sunday. Still saw some confusion. Those 2 timeouts in the first quarter were mind-boggling, head-scratching, of course, but it seems like by the time second half got around, we figured it out. Cliff Kingsbury called a better game, I think. I like the way he tried to get Jaden Daniels involved with the short dink and dunks first few possessions. Because we all know he can sling it, but you don't want to come out of the gate slinging it unless you're feeling lucky that day. But I just feel better about it. I feel more positive. I'm still 7 field goals, no touchdowns. We were right there at the doorstep, looking in the window. We just didn't have the key to get in. So other than that, I feel pretty good for the offense, but I'll let Stoner talk. I'll get back to you.
Yeah, so let's just stick to that side of the ball then for now, because that is kind of the only place that seems to have some hope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same with you guys. I feel a little bit better about the outcome of the game than I did immediately for a lot of the reasons that you said. And I think probably the biggest reason is the week before I gave Cliff Kingsbury like a D grade for the offense, the play calling, and all of that. And then as I go back and I look at it again and again, and I liked what Cliff Kingsbury did, but looking back at it a second time, I think I would give Cliff Kingsbury an A, maybe even an A+. I thought he was fantastic in this game. And it's not just about the different, some of those plays, the throwback to Eckler on the one play, or the one play to the middle screen to Eckler, which was really nice and everything. But he did kind of what you hope he would do. He had tons of different formations. It wasn't always about running guys all over the place, but he had a ton of different formations. He eased Daniels into the game, didn't just have him out there throwing, because game one, first play, throw, second play, throw, third play, throw. This time he eased him into it, had him throwing a lot of sideways passes. And he kept running the ball, and he kept running the ball, and it was successful. So he did it again, and he did it again. And he went with the guy who was hot, right? He went with Brian Robinson when he was running well. And then if Eckler was running well, he stuck with Eckler. He didn't just immediately say, well, Brian Robinson's our first down back, I'm going to bring Brian. No, Eckler's hot right now, I'm sticking with Eckler. And a lot of things like that he did. And then as they kept pounding the ball, what does that do? Obviously, brings linebackers up, forces the defense to commit more to the run, opens up the second half throwing. And so I thought Kingsbury was great in this game, and I have to give him his flowers, because of the week before I didn't like what he did at all. So I got more thoughts on the Giants, but I didn't want to dominate too much.
Yeah, that's fair. Sticking with the offense, you mentioned it, Trev. 7 field goals, maybe not ideal, right? And that was one of the things I kind of went to bed with after my first watch, was 7 field goals. Like, you didn't score a touchdown. You're not going to win a lot of games. You're not playing the Giants without a kicker every week, right? So it's like, you're not going to win a lot of games. But then I slept on it, and I wake up and I realize they didn't punt the ball. The lowest amount of plays they had on a drive was 8.
Right.
The ball was moving. And that is just fantastic, right? I mean, technically there was the end of the first half, but I mean, the actual drives, no less than 8 plays. So you're not doing 3 and outs. You're keeping your defense fresh. Now, your defense didn't do anything, but the offense was moving, and that is promising. It's not a guarantee that things are going to get better. It's not a guarantee they're going to end up in the end zone.
Right.
That's at least promising that your offense can move the ball, because you're going to need to do that.
Yeah. All we did. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So one last thing with mice, and then I'll give it back to you guys, is we had a stat last year, courtesy of John Keim, I believe, that 80% of the drives that involved the sack did not end up in points, not even a field goal. And Daniels was sacked 5 times, and they still managed to move the ball and put up a field goal. Okay. Yeah. That is huge. Going from that horrendous, contribution last year to having a playmaker, somebody who can, even after a mistake, make up for it, is fantastic. Jaden Daniels looked fantastic. You're talking about slinging it in the second half. He started slinging it after he took a hard hit, and he was just like, maybe we're not going to run as much, right? He started throwing over. Look at the difference between his average depth of target last week to this week. Right. He was throwing it all over and going up and down the field with the levels of throw. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. And shout out to Noah Brown, too, for catching on to the playbook in such a little bit of time, because he was sitting on his couch 2 weeks ago waiting for a call, and we gave him one. And shout out to Jaden Daniels showing trust in newly arrived Noah Brown. it wasn't always just Terry. It's like, I've got other players too. I'm gonna give this guy a shot, which turned out great. Two huge gains and 2 huge catches by Noah Brown. I think he had 3 targets. So
yeah,
offense is humming.
And last year, what did we do? We complained so much about the offense, and we said you need more screens, you need more quick passes, you need more running the ball because you have a young, inexperienced quarterback who tends to get sacked a lot. And that's what they had last year. And we complained, said you just can't drop them back 3, 5, 7 steps so many times a game. And so this year, or at least this week anyway, it's exactly what they did. Week 1, he had the shortest time to throw. Here, he got the ball out the quickest. And then in week 2, he was even faster than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there were a lot of bubble screens that went for 1 yard or went backwards or whatever. But those are all important part of the growth and development of your quarterback, easing him into the game, getting him to throw those short, quick passes, keep him out of harm's way, keep the defense honest, keep the defense sucking up into that area to where then you can start throwing over the top of it. So he's basically doing, at least in this game, exactly what we had hoped that he would do. And it's proven to be successful. I get it, they didn't get in the end zone. And there were some crazy plays or non-plays, false starts that were really the crux of why they couldn't get in. But they do need to overcome those, right?
Okay.
You mentioned, Nathan, they overcame the sacks to be able to go down and get points. Now they need to be able to overcome the sacks and false starts or whatever and go down and get those points. I just thought it was a great game plan for Cliff Kingsbury. Jaden Daniels executed it really well. And maybe the biggest thing I liked about Jaden Daniels is you can see him up there changing plays or not changing plays. Whatever he's doing, he's keeping the defense honest by at least getting up and down the line and calling out something different. He is correctly pointing out blitzes. There was the one that we posted on our account where Okereke is just standing there over the top of Ertz.
Mm-hmm.
And Jaden Daniels just goes 58, points him out to the left. Sure enough, Okereke blitzes, and Jaden Daniels throws into that area to Zach Ertz. That's something that a rookie quarterback can't usually do, and that was very impressive. And that bodes well for the future. It's not always going to be smooth this year as a first-year guy. You've seen it with other talented quarterbacks that it's not smooth. It hasn't been smooth for Caleb or Bo or Bryce Young, of course. But it's going to be a learning process, and we're going to have weeks where we pull out our hair. But last week, Jaden Daniels.
There's lots to improve on. 0 passing touchdowns through 2 games. I mean, it's not like he's playing perfect, but he's showing the promise that is the reason why he was picked at that spot, right?
Absolutely.
I mentioned 5 sacks, gentlemen. Without looking, can you guys tell me how many yards we lost off of those 5 sacks?
I remember
it was 17.
Yeah, it was somewhere around there, like 14, something like
16.
that. 16.
5
right. So they weren't like massive.
No. That's huge.
No.
Right. Yeah.
That is huge.
I remember a couple of them were like he was scrambling and running around, and then he's trying to get downfield, and he gets knocked out at the line of scrimmage. It's a sack, technically.
Yep.
But they didn't really lose any yards or, lose 1 yard or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So it's one of the reasons why they think they were able to continue those drives. Let's talk about the other side, the elephant in the room, if you would. This defense is everything we feared it was going to be. Now, Stoner, you were a little bit more happy on this defense, thinking they were going to go from dead last to still within the bottom third, but at least the upper half of that.
Yep.
Right now, it's looking like that's not going to be the case.
I'm going to kind of push back a little bit on this defense and saying how bad they were. Look, they're not good, right? But when you give up, and I said this on an instant reaction, when you give up 18 points in an NFL game, you should win that game. That's a good defensive effort. I understand that they didn't have a kicker, so maybe they kick some field goals and make some extra points and all that, so it could be even higher. But the point is that they held a guy who has traditionally absolutely murdered them in Daniel Jones, and they held him to 3 touchdowns in an NFL game, and that's pretty good. Looking back at it, the interior defensive line wasn't as horrible as everybody thinks that they were. They were running right up the middle, that's for sure. Singletary was gutting them right up the middle, and that shouldn't happen at the pace that he was doing it. I thought the linebackers were very good.
Linebackers are good.
Other than a guy by the name of Michael Davis, I thought the corners were good. And everybody not named Jeremy Chinn, I thought the safeties were pretty good. Now listen, Malik Neighbors had 10 catches for what? 120?
95 or
95 and touchdown
127.
127.
Okay, that's a stud.
Off of 18 targets, by the way.
Yeah. 18 targets. He only got 10 catches. That catch percentage.
Daniel Jones only threw to 4 people the entire game.
Yeah. And I think Neighbors had like 60% of the targets. It was just the one guy. And so the defense needs to fix that, right? If you see if the trend is that they're only throwing to Neighbors, you got to do something defensively to stop that and make Wan'Dale Robinson or Darius Slayton or whomever beat you, and not, you're that stud number 1 pick over there. But overall, they weren't terrible. I'm sorry. They weren't terrible. They weren't really good either. They were in the C- range. Everyone wants to give them an F. Everyone wants to say they were terrible all over the place. But they were in the C- range. And I think that they can still improve on that. And it might be personnel decisions. You might see Derek Forrest come off of the inactive list and replace Chinn. That's a possibility. Kind of see what he can do. Johnny Newton only played like 16 snaps. Maybe he can do something, right? Jamin Davis was a scratch. Maybe he replaces somebody on the edge. So we'll see going forward. We need to slow our roll a little bit on how bad the defense was, because if Michael Davis wasn't out there in that first half, I think the numbers would have looked a little bit better.
Yeah. And I told you before, Davis has these hot and cold seasons, and they've alternated, and this was supposed to be a hot season. It is anything but. It is god awful. We saw a little bit in preseason, and now through 2 games, he again has just been, I don't want to say lackluster, because that's doing him a favor. It was abysmal out there. I'll give you Benjamin St. Juste looked better. Yes. I really fear
St. Juste was very good. He got
burned
B- plus.
Yeah. If Trev can hate on Kendall Fuller all last season when Kendall Fuller was above average, then I think I can be a little tough on Benjamin St. Juste here for this game. Okay. There's a lot that I worry about here. The pressures again were up. They had a lot of pressures. They weren't getting home.
That's right.
And that is going to be a problem. They only got 1 sack for 3 yards against Daniel Jones. And this is something we're going to see. You're not the team cannot cover. And so you're not going to see a covered sack. You're not going to have one of these where, everyone's covered and that's why someone was able to get home. They just have to get home because somebody's going to be open up against this defense, because you don't have quality corners on either side. And the safety room outside Quan Martin seems to be a little bit more suspect than what I thought coming into the season.
Mm-hmm.
And even Quan's not exactly lighting it up like I was hoping he was going to.
Yeah.
So it's a problem because they don't have A+ rushers. And something you'll see if you watch, go watch the game again. If you have access to all 22, go watch it. Everybody's asking, where's Jonathan Allen? Where's Deron Payne?
Mm-hmm.
And I know most people won't want to hear this because they still feel like they need to be beating this, but both of them are getting double teamed every time. You don't have to waste a double team on an outside guy.
Not on Dorrance Armstrong.
You're not going to have to, right? Not going to do it to Farrell. So you just put two guys on either Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, and it's going to take them, even when they're forcing their way through, it's taking too long because working through two guys consistently all game is tiring.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have anybody to beat on the outside. It's rough.
Look, if Michael Davis comes up and he makes those tackles, right? He's playing off coverage and the pass will go in there. And if he comes up and makes the tackles, that's what you got to do. If he makes those tackles, those plays are a lot different. And maybe the outcome of those drives are a lot different. But when you miss those tackles and then the guy runs for another 25, 30 yards, that's where the big plays were coming in against this defense in the first half. And they weren't having as many of those in the second half once he was gone. But here's a stat to kind of back up what you were talking about, Nathan and Trev. I want to hear, because I know you don't like these guys, and there's plenty of people over here that don't like those two tackles and their $40 million cap hits, which I don't know why we're complaining about that. We got plenty of money. We're the number one. There's $35 to $40 million in cap space that this team has. So it's not like it's preventing them from signing anybody else. So I don't know why we bring up how much money they make, but listen to this. The Giants had 19 pass attempts where they used 6 or more blockers. 6 or more blockers. Think about that. So at least one extra guy staying in to block. The second highest in the entire league, 19 plays in the entire league. They led the league with 10 attempts with 7 blockers. 7. Okay. Allen and Payne were doubled quite often in pass pro. Very rarely were they one-on-one. I get it that they should be able to beat those guys in the one-on-ones, but if you're constantly getting doubled, then I need Dorrance Armstrong to step up. I need Cleveland Farrell to step up.
He had the sack.
Yeah, that Daron Payne caused. Go back and look at that. Daron Payne was about to get that sack, and he ran Daniel Jones right into Cleveland Farrell. That Daron Payne.
That's what we need, though. We need those guys to be able to do that. And I'm with you. I'm with you, Stoner.
That 6 and 7 pass pros. And what does that mean? On the back end, your corners are not doing the job that they need to do because Daniel Jones has time to be able to make that play.
All right.
Neighbors and nobody else.
Yeah, explain the run defense then. We let Devin Singletary look like a young Saquon Barkley out there. I know the stats.
16 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown.
I mean, yeah, it was awful. Poor tackling, yes, but how did he get that far up into the backfield to get Michael Davis to poor tackle him? Because our defensive line is having gaping holes up through the middle every time. Any team with a mid-level jag running back can gash us, and we've seen it 2 games so far. Rashad White and Devin Singletary.
Yeah.
So I
look,
don't
that's
like
fair.
that we have.
That's fair, Trev. I'm not trying to say that this defense is good. I'm not
No,
trying
I know,
to say that
I'm just taking the hate off
well
in them a little bit because
sure.
After that stat, I'm like, cool. They don't deserve all the crap we're giving them, but they do deserve some of it when it comes to the run game.
You agree?
That's why we got them 2 big cojones in the middle to do that, and we're just letting them run right by us. So
agreed.
Something's got to give.
I saw
what it is, but
the touchdown to Wandale caught a touchdown, right? Wandale Robinson caught one touchdown, right? That was down. It was maybe a 5-yarder or something like that. Washington rushed 8 guys.
Oh yeah,
on that play, and had
got Mike Sanders just too busy looking in the backfield.
He wasn't looking. He played the inside, and he just got to the outside. I don't know if he was expecting somebody to be protecting the outside, but he was ready to take the in-breaking route, and you or I could have gone out there and scored.
Yeah. But those 8 guys have got to. It can't be that Daniel Jones can still take that 3-step drop. It's a quick drop, get it. Yeah. But if you're rushing 8, you should be on him in a half a second. You should be on him as soon as the ball gets to him.
Disrupt the pass.
Disrupt the pass, exactly. And they couldn't on that particular play. So I think the defensive calls have been pretty good in terms of It's not just 4 guys going in there. They are blitzing quite a bit. But right now they're just not there yet. And I think they're going to continue to improve. Maybe not this week, okay, because there's somebody special playing quarterback. But over the course of the year, I think they're going to be okay defensively. Not again, I'm just going back to what I said earlier, which is, right around 18, 19, 20, 21 ranked defense. I'm not saying they're going to be great.
Yeah. I don't think you ever said that they were going to be great. You said that they were going to be kind of in that 20, low 20s is what I think you were going with for that one. So
I feel like
it's fair.
I feel like we brought Michael Davis in to be that vet leader of our cornerback room. Yeah. And he's just not it. There's some people on the street who could come in here, I think, and take his spot and at least be a better leader or a better example of how to play corner than what Michael Davis is doing. So,
well, we did have the question from JG here. Someone reported that the Commanders signed a new cornerback to the practice squad. You guys have any info on that? Yes, it's Kevin Seymour.
Yeah.
We would have seen him.
He played us in the preseason last year when we beat them.
Yeah.
But apparently it's a special team kind of cornerback. So I don't know if we're getting rid of old special teams ace Nick Bellore and he's taking his spot on that or what. But that was an interesting move.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect much unless the injury to Forbes is worse than what they might have.
That thing on his thumb made it look like it.
So, I mean, he wasn't catching the ball anyways, Trev. So, I mean, I don't think he really.
I know. So, what does that?
So,
what does that tell you about our cornerback room? If Forbes is supposed to be our number 2 corner outside of BSJ, I guess, and he goes down with the injury, and then you get veteran Michael Davis coming in and just absolutely making us appreciate Emmanuel Forbes in there. That's a problem, and I think it needs to be addressed free agency. Like, you need to go give somebody a workout that's worth a bleep instead of these special team guys or whatever. Like, something's got to change quick because the receivers don't get any easier on our schedule.
No,
and it starts with this Monday night. No matter if T. Higgins is playing or not, you still got Jamar Chase. You guys remember that preseason game we went to and Jamar Chase was dropping balls left and right?
Dropped
and we were
everything.
Like, yo, he's going to be a bust. Well, that narrative changed quickly.
Yeah.
So we just got
he's a problem. He's a problem. And one other thing about that I had in my notes for the Giants game, and I don't know if this is a good omen or bad omen. I need you guys to tell me. The breaks went all Washington's way. I said, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's weird because didn't we have like 10 penalties that game?
We did have 10
starts at least.
Yep.
That's a sloppy game. And we wasted 2 timeouts in the first quarter that could have bit us in the butt. We could have missed a field goal. So you have the so on the very first play, the kickoff that was returned, that we had oh my gosh. Right?
But their kicker gets knocked out of the game for good, and that changes the entire complexion of what the Giants are going to do on offense. They have to go for it on every 4th down. They have to go for 2 because the punter showed that he can't kick an extra point, right? Yeah. That was a good break for Washington, was that, right? You had the you guys got on my case last year all the time about this, and I still can't figure it out. Remember the peanut punch, right? BSJ peanut punched, right? Chinn recovered. And last year when that happened to Washington, you guys were just like, well, what is he supposed to do? He punched it out or what? Well, he's supposed to hold on to it. But in this game, we got the peanut punch and got a big, big turnover at the time. Another break our way. Remember, there was one drive where Washington was going to go 3 and out. But on that 3rd down play, which was an incomplete pass, they called the guy, I don't remember who it was, for holding Zach Ertz when Zach Ertz ran over the guy. Right? That was not a penalty on the defensive guy. That should have been like offensive pass interference. Right? That was a huge break. That was a 3rd down play.
Yeah.
Right? That's another break. How about Ertz taking the ball away from the guy on the pass?
That was so questionable, bro. That was
he came up and he said, I don't know how he didn't get that ball.
And Dable didn't get the challenge flag out in time. In years past, either our coach wouldn't get it out in time,
Sure.
or something crazy would happen. Like, remember the week before when they used instant replay to take away a penalty, right?
Yes.
Maybe instant replay would come in and say, oh, that last play didn't count. It let him challenge whatever. It didn't happen. That was a huge break that went our way.
Yep.
And by the way, kudos to the coaching staff / Jaden Daniels / the entire offense for understanding that, getting up there and getting a playoff in time.
Yeah,
too.
big kudos.
We haven't seen that in the past.
That is something we haven't seen in a while.
Yep.
Cliff Kingsbury, Jaden Daniels, the whole offense was on the same page. Get up there and force the issue. At minimum, you might make them burn a timeout.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. But they get the play away, and it doesn't matter really, as long as the result of that play isn't a turnover.
Right. Even
job.
if you lose 3 yards, which I think they may have. I can't remember what happened. And then the last one, of course, was the neighbor's drop at the end, which was that. If he catches that, they win the game, right? Because they're going to go down.
Throws it earlier, they win the game, but he waited long and still.
Huge breaks all seem to go Washington's way, other than I think the very first play with the kickoff when you had the holding penalty on the lore. And so is that a good omen that maybe things are starting to turn Washington's way, or is it a bad omen in that that's the only way Washington can win against a bad team is by getting all the breaks?
No, hey, there's been some times we played the Giants and got some breaks and we still lost or tied. So
I was about to say.
We find a way to lose.
Okay. I just thought that was really interesting that looking back,
it's a momentum changer. It's a break.
Lot went our way.
I will say that expect a regression to the mean, right? Like that's probably like if we're on getting all the breaks right now, expect us to, maybe I don't know, maybe we've got a whole lot of bad breaks like slotted up to finally like we're gonna see some good breaks. So maybe we don't have to see we'll see a little bit more of the medium stuff instead of a way over on the bad side. But yeah,
can we be realistic?
Yeah, of course, always.
If the Giants had the kicker, we would have lost that game.
I think that's
nothing about it except for the extra points and the field goals. So, we won, but like Nathan said, we're not going to win many games.
So that's how I felt.
Straight field.
That's how I felt after watching the game the first time. Was we got lucky. We didn't deserve to win this. The breaks, like you said, Stoner, went our way. Them not having a kicker, was a godsend because we gave up 3 touchdowns. We couldn't score ourselves. And that's kind of how it felt right after watching it.
But
that's not how it felt looking back at it.
But make no mistake about this. The Commanders' offense absolutely dominated the Giants' defense up and down the field the entire game. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter. Absolutely dominated them. 215 yards rushing. I think they were 6 of 12, 7 of 14, whatever it was, 50% on third down conversions. Right?
1 for 1 those worth.
Right? They dominated them. They made silly mistakes in the red zone with those false starts, got behind the 8 ball, got behind the sticks on that, and then had trouble punching it in. That's their struggle that they had. But again, Nathan, read off those drives that they had. The first drive, 12 plays, almost 10 minutes.
They're good.
14, 16 plays. I don't remember what it was. 12 and 8 and 6.
16,
8,
10,
crazy.
14, the play to end a half, 9, 9, 9, 8.
I'm sorry, that's dominating.
It is, but if you hear that stat alone and not know the score, you're like, oh, they at least scored 35.
Well, yeah, of course. You got to punch it in. No.
Also, do you think Tress Way actually missed punting in the game? You know how quarterbacks love to play the game. They're down by 30. They don't want to come out still. They still want to play because they love the game. Do you think Tress Way low-key was like, I didn't at least get 1 punt off?
Yeah.
I think he's fine collecting his check with his number 10
true, but
jersey.
It's Tress Way. I feel like he'd be like, I kind of want to get 1 off.
So 2 things I want to bring up here for Stoner. Specifically, I couldn't find the clip yet.
Yeah.
Stoner, and I think Trev, you agreed with him at the
I
beginning.
think he
of the
mentioned
year.
this earlier, but yeah.
Yeah, beginning of the year talked about how we weren't going to have red zone issues, and here
Right.
we go having red zone issues.
Yeah.
Okay, first,
For
I
sure.
just wanted to point that out. So
Yeah.
make someone needs to find the clip, and
If we're inside the 5, we're getting in there. There's no doubt about it.
yeah, super excited from there. My question for Stoner right now:
Yeah.
you said Washington's offense dominated the Giants' defense.
Absolutely.
Okay. Earlier, how did you describe Washington's defense against the Giants' offense?
I thought that they played fairly well.
Fairly well.
Yeah.
They
I
weren't-
would give them a C.
Okay.
To
But
maybe
you wouldn't say that the Giants' offense dominated.
No.
Okay.
No, they absolutely did not.
Okay. So I only ask Stoner.
Okay.
I love it. I love how he said
Bring it.
I only
think I'm
ask
afraid of
because
this? Trev, you think I'm
these are
afraid
the
of this?
stats- These are the stats you brought up for Washington.
Yes.
Okay. 7 of 14 on third down efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Giants, that's 50%, by the way, for those doing math at home. The
Mhm.
Giants, 4 of 8.
Mm-hmm. 50%.
Oh,
8.
50%.
And only eight
Eight.
third downs.
8.
Thank you.
The one
Fred-
thing that you
Fred
can
coming
sit
my way.
there and push as far as the domination total is the total play count. 69 plays for Washington, 51 for the Giants.
What else?
However, when you're talking about yards per play,
Oh boy.
6.2 for Washington, 6 on the dot for the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Passing yards per pass, 6.2 and 6. Rushing, 6.1 for Washington, 5.9 for the Giants. The penalties, 10 for Washington, 5 for the Giants. But you're talking about a defense that was giving up just as much as their offense was dishing it out. So I have a hard time with you sitting there giving praise to the defense when the Giants were able to move up and down. They scored on 3 of 3 red zone trips.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They have the 1 turnover, which is honestly probably one of the big reasons why there's such a play discrepancy.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, it seems like their stats on surface level were 100% keeping up with Washington.
What you keep giving this outside of this and outside of that. Well, you can't discount those. How many punts did the New York Giants have?
2, 3. I just had that up actually.
Okay.
1,
As you're
2, 2
finding that.
punts, turnover on downs, and then a turnover.
And just a regular
fumble.
turnover on the,
and
on
the
the
fumble.
fumble, right? So caused a fumble, caused a turnover on downs, 2 punts. Washington's offense did none of those. Did not turn it over, did not punt, did not turn it over on downs, and got points on every single possession they had. Don't give me the kneel down. That's not a possession. I mean, technically it is, but we're not saying it's a possession. They scored on every single possession. The New York Giants did not. I totally get that Washington needs to punch it in, but they dominated in every other aspect offensively. And the Giants did not do that. They got the better of the defense eventually, total, but they didn't dominate. That's all I'm saying. What were the yards? Washington had 400 and some yards of offense.
425 to 304. And again, but when you're
304.
looking at it on a per play basis, they were going at the same clip as Washington. The discrepancy, which is as I mentioned before, was the play count.
Okay.
The fact that Washington had 18 more plays, they were going at the same efficiency.
And what did we talk about last year? How can your offense help your defense? By holding on to the ball.
Yeah, that is
And
one
giving the
huge
defense
thing when you're
rest.
talking about that time of possession.
Time of possession is almost double.
37 and a half minutes for Washington to the 22 and a half
Yeah.
for the Giants. Big money there.
Right. So I think don't try and twist my words and say I thought the defense was really good. I'm just saying that their offense did not dominate in that game.
I happened to notice that as you were talking very happily about the offense dominating. The defense was that played at sea level, and I'm sitting there looking at, and again, these are box score stats, and I always caution people going off that. But again, it happened to be funny to me that you were, like I said, you're talking very highly of one, not against another one. Guys, I think we've talked.
Either of you think it wasn't domination?
No, I don't think it was.
I wouldn't call it domination. You need to score touchdowns for domination. It was efficient, and it was fantastic. The no punt thing is great, but I wouldn't say it's domination unless you're scoring touchdowns.
All right.
So that's my take. That is also going to end 40 minutes of discussion, much longer. We were kind of vamping a little bit. We do have a guest coming on, still not here, but we beat the Giants. Let's talk about beating the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll do that here in the game. Why don't you stick with us? Welcome to the game here on episode 191 of Ref the District. It's Monday Night Football prime time for our Washington Commanders, an away game in prime time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
I've just been informed that our guest is going to be coming a little bit later, so we'll.
It's always been 8:45.
Maybe I was thinking about next week. Yeah. Communication on mine end. So we are gonna talk about the Washington side here. We will have the Cincinnati side going in the cool down. So the titles are wrong, but we'll get there. Is all I'm saying. All right, Monday Night Football, primetime, away game. Washington coming off a win. Their opponent, somebody who most pundits would have put in the playoffs, starting off 0-2.
Yeah.
Is there any way they start off 0-3?
Oh, for sure.
I think there's plenty of ways that can happen.
I think it can happen too.
Well, Trev, why don't you start us off then? How is it?
Okay. I think if we put the pressure on Joe Burrow, I think it's going to be an easier game for our back end. And if T. Higgins doesn't play, covering one superstar wide receiver is better than covering two. And I think we could get the job done. I think Joe Witt will have a good game plan for that. I think he already is game planning for that because I don't see T. Higgins trending to play this Sunday. Hamstring issues. So, if we've got to run the ball. I know their defensive line is banged up. They just went and signed Lawrence Guy, former Patriot. He's okay, but he's not the savior. So I think, and he's brand new to the system. So I think if we keep the same formula as far as running the ball like we did last week, and we actually go home on the defensive line and sack Joe Burrow, at least rattle the guy, make him run a little bit, make him go crazy, make him make a mistake, we have a really good chance of winning this game. Now, I know a lot of you guys might have saw that game Sunday where they lost to the Chiefs by 1. That was a example of early week 2 AFC rival teams playing. They usually play better against each other. They always play good against each other, no matter if it's week 2 or week 13.
Mm-hmm.
So that was going to be a contest. I thought they had chances to win, but they just couldn't get it done. It's also Patrick Mahomes is a genius. So they're going to come out fired up because of that loss and because they're 0-2. So I do think we have a good chance of beating Cincinnati based on our offense production. They ran the ball. I think our defense are kind of similar. They might have a better defense than ours a little bit, but at the same time, I don't think it's something to be feared about. But we are on Monday night. And in the past, when we're on prime time, we get embarrassed one way or another.
What's still left over from the past that has any connection to the present in terms
Derek
of
Forrest?
No, I'm talking about in
Jeremy
terms
Reeves.
of getting blown out on Monday night and Sunday night and Thursday night.
Thursday? None, because we haven't done that with this regime and this roster yet.
Not the roster, not the coaching staff,
had,
not the ownership, not the general manager, nothing.
Right, but we've had plenty of different of all those titles in the past few years, and we still find a way to get embarrassed on primetime. So I'm just going off of that alone, just history like that, but not proven history, I guess, because we haven't played on primetime. But
I think there's a lot to look forward to in terms of what Washington can do to win this game. There's a lot going against them. Cincinnati is not 0-2 worthy in terms of how they're going to be this season. They're a fine football team. They're a very good football team, and they've been good for a few years now. They may be getting to the point now where they've kind of reached this level to where it's Super Bowl win or bust. They've been to the Super Bowl. They went to 2 straight AFC championship games. They've beaten Kansas City in an AFC championship game. Joe Burrow's the real deal. Jamar Chase is the real deal. Zach Taylor's the coach, seems to be the real deal. All of these things. But they have warts like anybody else. At 0-2, for the 3rd straight year, by the way, that they've gone 0-2, that team is coming in desperate and they're coming in pissed off. And that's not a good combination to have to face that for a young team like Washington, not necessarily young in age, but where it matters most at the quarterback position, right? That guy that you absolutely have to handle with Hendrickson on the edge. The guy is an absolute
underrated superstar.
I mean, he's a superstar. He is a guy you have to game plan for on that side of the ball. And offensively, obviously, you have to game plan for Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, as you said, Trev, and of course Joe Burrow. But football sometimes is not that difficult to try and figure out how to win games. And I think Roger said it earlier that Nathan put up there. If you can control the football, the time of possession, by running the ball, keeping the best players off the field, the best players are Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, keep them off the field, limit their time on the field, you have a chance to win this football game. And, of course, you've got to punch it in when you need to. And, by the way, Washington, excellent at running the ball so far the first 2 weeks. The Cincinnati Bengals, putrid in stopping the run. So
very bad.
Keep doing it.
One thing of note, by the way, I'm of course concerned, and we'll talk with Anthony coming up for the Bengals here on Jamar Chase, not leading the team in receiving. By the way, anyone want to take a guess who their leading receiver is?
I can't pronounce his last name, but he scored a touchdown last week, didn't he?
Is he the rookie kid? No, I don't know.
Is his last name start with an I?
No, it's not Iosavis.
Okay.
He's got 33 yards on the year. It's not Jermaine Burton, got 47. Jamar Chase has 97. Yeah, I'll give you a hint. Right. It's not a wide receiver.
Zach
Moss to Washington.
Is it? Oh, so it
Zach
would
Moss.
Be a running back, Zach Moss?
Nope,
no?
It's Gesicki.
Oh, wow.
Yep, Gesicki is their leading wide receiver. So all this concern about Jamar Chase beating us, so much so I've made him the image for this conversation, and not actually the leading wide receiver. That's probably going to change this game. But just something to know. I wanted to go there because, and look at the stats here for the Bengals to try to find kind of the sacks was really what I was kind of coming here for, because we're talking about Hendrickson, sorry, and wanting to see just how dominant this defense has been. They've only got 3 sacks on the year. Hendrickson having 2 of those. That doesn't say much. Last year, we went through a series of teams where they were putrid in the sack totals, and then like nearly doubled their sack total playing us, right? If they didn't double it, they surely beat their average. Different year, different team, different offensive line, different scheme. So hopefully different results in regards to that. But the Bengals coming in, not necessarily getting the pressure, or at least the sack totals you would think that they were getting. Joe Burrow has taken 6 sacks, so 3 per game so far. I'm making note of this because one of the things with Joe Burrow, I've mentioned this with Jaden Daniels a couple of times. There's no successful QB in the NFL that hasn't had a season under 20. So Joe Burrow, for the record, his career average in college was in the mid 20s. Tends to hold on to the ball longer than he should.
Yep.
Now, his Heisman year, the year that LSU won the championship, and they had him smoking a cigar in the locker room for that iconic photo, that was a sub 20 season. And he's been in and out of that his NFL career, sometimes not in a good light and sometimes not doing too bad. So Joe Burrow could be for the taking if all goes well. Now the thing is even when he's taken down at a high rate, he's still a very efficient quarterback.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's a scary MFer, that dude Joe Burrow is.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of interesting nuggets here about Cincinnati, right? Last year, we know how bad the Washington defense was, right? In yards per game. They were dead DFL, right? Dead effing last. 32nd. Well, who's 31st? Cincinnati Bengals. And they lost probably their second best player, who just so happens to be the reigning NFC Defensive Player of the Week, right? Jesse Bates for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yes.
Right? They lost one of their best players. Hendrickson and him were their best players.
Yeah.
And so far this year, they have not necessarily turned around their defensive issues. It's only 2 games. It's kind of hard to look at 2024 stats, team stats, and say, well, this is what this team is. And at this point, can't really do that yet. But so far, not so good defensively this year either. So if you can exploit that, if you can do what you've been trying to do these first couple of weeks, which is control the ball offensively with your running game, let Jaden throw it when he needs to, let Jaden run when you want him to, score in those red zone opportunities that they've had, and hopefully you can outscore them, because I don't think you're going to be able to hold down Joe Burrow and this offense down to 18 points like you did with Daniel Jones.
So on the Jaden Daniels front, I feel we've seen improvement from week 1 to week 2.
Mm-hmm.
What does improvement for Jaden Daniels look like in week 3?
Probably more of that downfield passing that we saw in the second half. Probably hanging in that pocket just a tick longer and understanding. This is the big thing for him. Understanding where the guy is going to be open without necessarily seeing him open, right? That's the difference between a quarterback and an efficient quarterback. Because you just watch the videos, right? And you can see guys open all over the place, and he'll either tuck it and go, or he'll dump it off to a back, which aren't bad plays. But the evolution is to understand what the defense is doing and how he can get it to the open man before that guy even knows he's open. So that's improvement for me.
So right now, Jaden Daniels is the only first-round QB with 500-plus total yards and 0 giveaways through 2 career starts. That's not this season.
Good.
That's period since 1970.
For sure.
Trev, does that trend continue week 3? Do we see a 0 turnover game from the young man?
That's what I was just looking at. I was looking at their starting defense and their corners and safety. So their corners are Cam Taylor-Britt, who had that one-hander interception on Mahomes last week.
Sick, right?
Yeah, he's not that bad. Then you got Von Bell as a safety. Geno Stone from Baltimore Ravens a few years ago. He's back there as a free safety. Then you got Dax Hill, your boy from Florida. And then Mike Hilton is their nickelback. So these guys can play in the secondary. Way better than our secondary. So I just feel like this is a bigger chance of Jaden Daniels to turn the ball over than I think he had last week against the Giants secondary. You just got to trust his instincts, and he's got to pull the trigger. Now, and if he does pull the trigger, that may result in a couple picks here and there, or maybe also some touchdowns too, which we need and we'd like to see. So I do think, yes, it has a chance of doing that, but I think it's way more susceptible of it not trending that way just because of their secondary and his hesitancy that he has shown in the past 2 weeks. Not necessarily last week, but first game he was kind of iffy. So it's tough.
It's only been 2 games, but in 2024, the Cincinnati defense against the pass is the second best in the entire league. Against the run, they're like 26th or something like that.
So you run, play action. That's how you beat the pass. Like you said, it's not too difficult. That's just playing football.
I think you're right. You got to execute it, though.
Yeah, you do.
So one of the other things, a lot of people mentioning the passing touchdowns. You've seen some Terry throw the ball to Terry and stuff like this. Uptown Dre bringing up the next point here, right? 0 turnovers. But it's the efficiency as well. 75% pass percentage. It should keep going if the run is effective, is what Uptown Dre is saying. Is that something we're going to see? I mean, he's not having to throw the ball 50 times. Eric Bieniemy's long gone.
Thank goodness.
Right.
He has been throwing the ball in the 20s, and he's been completing it at a 75% passing percentage. Is that efficiency going to continue here if, as we're hoping, he develops a lot more of that mid-range game? Right now it's inflated because we're talking to the average depth of target is still within like 6 yards.
Yeah, it is.
I think
if that starts extending out, will this passing percentage still be high? I assume it's going to drop, but it can't drop from 75 to like 55. But can it stay one of the league best?
I think at least for the next few weeks it will, just because that's the way that Jaden Daniels is getting comfortable in the game through Kingsbury, is dinking and dunking, mid-range passes, getting that man comfortable, getting the final rhythm. So yeah, I do think that trends up. Like you said, it might drop to like 60 or 65, but I don't see it dropping more than 20% from week 2 to week 3, unless Cliff Kingsbury just gets a wild hair up, as you know what, and comes out to sign a whole different game plan. I don't see that happening. I think he's going to look at the stats, look at the team run defense from the Bengals, and B-Rob and Eckler have shown them in 2 weeks already that they can tote the rock. And if you keep feeding the rock, good things happen. At least set you up for points. Whether it's a field goal or touchdown, you're set up for points. So, yeah, my answer, I think it will drop, but not significantly because of the way Cliff is going to get him comfortable.
Yeah. I need him, actually, believe it or not. I need that percentage to come down, and here's why. I need some of those sacks to become incomplete passes. I need some of those sacks to go flying out of bounds. And it looks like he's hesitant to do that, a la Russell Wilson, who refuses to throw the ball out of bounds, which is why
Will Levis,
because he wants those percentage numbers to be high. That's a selling point when you're trying to get cash in the offseason, right? And so I hope that Jaden Daniels doesn't think that way. And I want him, look, he's at the close to the line of scrimmage as he's going out of bounds, and he can see that he's not going to get, at best, he's going to get a yard. Throw the ball away.
Yeah,
right?
I think I've seen Patrick Mahomes even just kind of like flip it out of bounds, right? At that point, he's just like, yeah, whatever. We'll just, I'm not going to get anything. Just let me toss it out of bounds. It's fine.
I need more of that.
So we all want to see an improvement from Jaden Daniels. Let's see that he needs to rely on Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. And we're all in agreement that this team really needs to run the ball.
Correct.
Actually, I don't know why I took that. Who wants to take it? What would you guys got to say at this time?
Run the ball.
There we go. So now my scenario for you guys is Cincinnati knows that's the case as well.
Yeah.
This defense still pretty sketchy, secondary especially. Jamar Chase is a home run threat, could easily score from anywhere on the field. What happens if Washington gets behind in this one? With the Giants game, they're able to keep pace. And in fact, as bad as that first game was, it wasn't out of hand until a little bit later with Tampa Bay. The game was still reasonable within like 10 points, 14 points at least, for a good portion of that game. What happens if Cincinnati gets up 2 touchdowns early against this team and they can't rely on running the ball because they just don't have the time? Is this team made up to be able to come back from that kind of deficit?
I don't know. I mean, I know we, in Stoner's words, dominated the offensive game last week, but there were 10 or like 7 or 8 plays more than what is needed to make a comeback. We can't run 12 plays in order to make a comeback. It's got to be 6 or less, I believe. And I don't know if we're built that way right now because it's taken us 12 plays to look like an efficiently run offense. Not saying it's a bad thing, but when you go up against high caliber offenses like the Bengals or the AFC teams in general that love pass heavy offenses, I don't know. It's going to be tough. I don't know if we have the playmakers to do that because outside of Terry, who do we rely on? Outside of Eckler, who are we going to rely on? Yeah. I mean, Ertz is good, but I don't see him as someone that we could rely on to take us down the field.
He's reliable, but he's not reliable, 100 plus yards reliable.
Yes, exactly. Not explosive. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, we haven't seen it yet. We've seen it in the second half against Tampa when they were down, right? And they had to throw the ball quite a bit. And you didn't see an efficient offense then, right? That's week 1, figuring some things out, right? This time, we only saw it for 1 drive. When they had to have it, they were able to do it. They were able to make downfield throws. They were still able to run the ball, and they gashed the Giants' defense on that last drive to win the game. So it's hard to say whether or not they can do it consistently over the course of a game against a team like Cincinnati. This is all part of the process. This is all part of building what this organization is going to be. Can they put these games together consistently, not just 1 drive over the course of 2 games? We need to be able to see it consistently. Hopefully they can. But I mean, Washington is the only team, one of 3 teams.
I was about to mention this, yeah.
One of 3 teams, right, who have not run an offensive play with a lead this entire season so far through 2 games.
That's crazy.
That's a crazy stat.
I was wanting to find that one just to bring it up.
But defense.
Yeah. So
that is insane, right? You have a victory, but it took a last-minute field goal. You've not seen Washington with a lead in 2024 outside of the game-winning field goal. You've not seen them take the ball with a lead. They've been playing from behind, which is why I wanted to know from you guys whether or not that's going to be a problem. If Cincinnati gets up quick, can we do it? Because this run offense has been fantastic. And Sav had earlier asked us, having gotten a taste of a running game, do any of you think we'll break 2,000 yards on the ground? Right now, we're set as a team. We're set to smash this 3,000 yards collectively at 176 yards a game. It's only 2 games, so it's a small sample size. But right now, set to smash it. So, in my opinion, yes. But why don't you guys answer Sav's question here? How do you think Washington over the season will have more than 2,000 as a team?
If defenses can't stop the run, I know if it was a 5th, we all be drunk. But so far, we're having success. So far, it's only 2 weeks. So,
if it was a
5th, we'd all be drunk.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think we could break 2,000. Also with Jaden Daniels' legs that he uses, whether he chooses to use them or not, and that's like if he has to or doesn't have to. Yeah, but I don't know.
If I'm calling plays,
it's too early to tell.
If I'm calling plays, I guarantee we're getting over 2,000 yards on the ground because you know why? Because I'm going to run the ball as much as I possibly could, right? It just depends. I think it depends a lot. Jaden Daniels is the biggest reason why those numbers are going to be higher, right? So far, he's rushed for what? Is he close to 100 yards over the course of 2 games. He had 40 this game. I don't remember what he had.
Yeah, he has over 100 yards
Over 100
for
yards,
the season.
Right, I mean,
he has the most for a rookie in 2 games.
And don't forget that the sack yards don't get subtracted from your rush total. They get subtracted from the team passing total, which is a weird stat. But that's what's going to help this run game in terms of trying to get over that 2,000-yard mark, because Jaden Daniels is probably going to get 600 to 700 of those all by himself. And if you can get a combined 13 to 1,400 yards out of B-Rob and Eckler, then you're easily going to get over 2,000. But they've got to stick to that plan. And if they do,
well, they got to stay in games. They have to stay competitive.
Absolutely.
Because you are going to end up having to do a lot less running if you're not competitive in games. Jaden Daniels, by the way, 132 yards over his first 2, which is
That's a lot.
the NFL record for a rookie within their first 2 games. So beating out that man behind Stoner's head there, RG3.
Robert Drippin.
Yep. So, all right. So running the ball is the game plan.
Yep.
Who
Absolutely.
is going to surprise us on offense? I would say last week it would have been Noah Brown, 3 targets, 3 catches, second best receiving threat for Washington last week. Who this week is going to step up on offense to help out Jaden Daniels, Brian Robinson, and Austin Eckler?
Terry McLaurin. I don't know why, but I just feel like this is going to be his best game yet this season. I know it's only 2 games, but Terry McLaurin, 90 yards, I can see that, and he scores a touchdown. So I think we're going to have a passing touchdown this game. But Terry McLaurin, I think he's going to be involved, not so obviously this time. I recognized last week we were like force feeding him.
Yeah, 12 targets and 22 yards. Rough.
And I mean, who knows? Maybe Cliff is trying to scheme things for him, and we're just not looking his way, or he's just being covered. I mean, Deontay Banks had a few good coverage on him last week, and that's Deontay Banks. So it's just another question about Terry, but I do feel like this week it's going to be Terry. It's time. It's time. He's had some streaks like this where he's been 4 targets or 3 catches, or 3 targets, 2 catches. Then he comes out with like another 8, 9, 10 catch game, touchdown. And I think it's time. It's been a long time. So Terry McLaurin.
All right. Well, my pick is going to be the guy I kind of picked in the offseason or during training camp. And it's the guy who had the 4th best receiver separation percentage in week number 2. And that's my guy, Luke McCaffrey. I think he's going to get more involved in this offense because he has shown that he can get open. He can separate. It's just going to, it's going to take time for this stuff to develop. So Luke McCaffrey is my guy that I think is going to have a little bit of a breakout game. For him, a breakout game might be 3 catches for 42 yards, right? For a rookie who I don't even know if he has any catches yet on the year. Maybe he had one. Oh, he had 1 in game 1, right? He hit 1 for 0 yards, I think. But that's my guy. He has the 3rd best in the entire NFL through 2 weeks. The 3rd best separation percentage in the league is Luke McCaffrey. Chris Olave's 1. Luke McCaffrey's 3. That's saying something, right? He's getting open.
I don't know why we had a randomly shadow Olave there. That feels like a little bit of a dagger.
Jahan who?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Jahan Dotson, just real quick, not doing great on the Eagles. Of course, he has to learn the playbook and everything like that. AJ Brown wasn't there Monday night. He got the start. Nowhere to be found. So that's all I'm going to say about him, because I don't like talking about my exes.
Amen.
We talk, you're bringing up Luke McCaffrey and his ability to get open. There's some people who are maybe not as high, in the chat there, being one of them. One of the things that was exciting for Luke McCaffrey when you're looking at just the athletic profile was it matched very well with a guy who did very well last year. And someone say his name, because I know I'm going to butcher it, from the Rams.
Puka Nacua.
Nacua, right? So matches very well with that. And so I'm not surprised to see that he's open, because when you look at, again, his athletic profile, even though he's very fresh to being a wide receiver, he very much has the ability to get open. And while I was surprised that's the receiver they went with, I'm happy he's here. And I think that I think the ball's going to start to fly. And I think Luke is going to be one of the recipients. I do think Terry McLaurin needs to get out of Terry. And I said this before, Terry McLaurin's strength is that mid-range. And right now, this offense isn't going mid-range. This offense is going short passes. And even if we start seeing a deep threat, that deep threat's going to be Diami, right? It's not going to be Terry McLaurin, although they did throw him on a go route opening of the second half against the Bengals. That's not what he's there for. His strength is that intermediate and getting contested catches. So once the offense shifts to those intermediate, that mid-range passing game, I think we're going to start seeing more Terry McLaurin. But I also think we're going to see a lot of Luke, because that's where Luke has been finding himself open. I agree with people who are mentioning Zach Ertz. I think that he has been playing fantastic so far for Washington. We're talking about a mid-30s guy. I mean, he's just barely younger than Trev, and he's been out there hauling butt and doing well and has been a reliable target. We talked time and time again about how running backs and tight ends are a security blanket for a rookie QB, and Zach Ertz is being exactly that for Jaden Daniels. Of course, we mentioned Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. Also, Eckler's been fantastic. I fully apologize, gentlemen, for being anywhere near pessimistic about Austin Eckler. I wasn't even saying he was going to be bad. You guys were talking him up like he was this God's gift to the football field. I was like, guys, pump your brakes. Okay, I've seen a little bit of a glow. If you watched Hercules in the 90s for Disney and you know how the gods have a little bit of glow, I've seen a little bit of that glow. Maybe he got something, there. So I apologize for not drinking the Eckler Kool-Aid.
It's okay.
And I think all those guys, really the guys who have come in on the 1-year deal, most of them anyway, Eckler's been exactly who you wanted him to be so far. Ertz has been exactly who you wanted him to be so far. I think Bobby Wagner had a little bit of a rough first game, but he's been what you've wanted him to be so far. Cleveland Farrell has been exactly who you wanted him to be so far, right? Jeremy Chinn, not so much.
No.
But those veterans that they brought in on kind of these 1-year deals have really worked out so far after 2 games. And oh, by the way, Biadish, we don't talk about him enough. 1 pressure through 2 games. That's it. 0 sacks.
He's really good.
1 pressure. I like him a lot. And my guy, Allegretti, playing very well.
He's blocking out there.
He's playing very well.
Yeah, surprisingly, Sam Cosme is the one who's kind of
money will
change
you
a little bit over there. But
new money will change you.
Well, he has a new baby too. Isn't the new dad thing gonna be normally after you have a kid that you get this dad boost, this dad strength, and he's not getting that. Maybe the money is there.
He did take somebody's life on that one run, I think, by B-Rob to the right side. He took somebody's head off. Cosme.
Yeah. Oh, Sam Cosme is still fantastic. He hasn't been earning that paycheck, but he's still been good. Let's move to the defensive side of the ball, which is the scarier side of things, which is it absolutely going to be there. We're talking about people living up the billing and the people who are there, earning their paycheck. Gus Bus saying Luvu has not lived up to the billing. We mentioned Chinn, but how about Luvu?
He had 11 tackles last game. I think he led the team in 11 tackles.
Luvu popped, I thought.
He popped.
Game 1.
But also, I don't really know what he's capable of doing outside of his highlight tapes from when we signed him from Carolina. Like, I didn't watch any Panthers games. I didn't pay any attention to when he was on the Jets either. I just saw the hype videos and the highlight reels that came out about him as we signed him. So he looks like he can play the part. But I don't know if this is his MO, just flying around everywhere just to try and be in the play no matter what, or if it's actually some technique behind it. So give Lewis some time. Brand new defense, brand new players he's playing with outside of Jeremy Chinn. But I'm just literally surprised about Jeremy Chinn. To segue from David real quick, Carolina trends. I thought, he recovered the fumble, cool. Other than that, he's just been a lazy defender, in my opinion.
Missing a lot of tackles.
Yeah, I don't understand what's going on. So
he was somebody I thought this is the regime that's somebody they wanted to bring in. He wanted to come here because he saw the opportunity with these two defensive-minded coaches to excel. And Jeremy Chinn was somebody I was fairly high on coming in and revitalizing his career for exactly those reasons. I thought he was going to be good. Now he's an in-the-box safety. It's not like, I mean, he's shown some range, but really his strength is essentially as a linebacker plus. And we haven't really seen that be successful here. Now it's so early. It's only 2 games. And someone earlier in the comment section had mentioned, give him at least one more game before you throw him to the wolves and bring in Defoe, who has been on the inactive list, right? So Stoner, you tell us all the time, like if they're not the first string guy or even the second string guy, they're there for a reason. You're not going to get Defoe's not going to come back and play like he did that one season that you remember and think that that's the guy he is. We're going to get the Derek Forrest that he was the other 2 or 3 seasons that he's been in the NFL. And
You're going to get that 6th round pick.
My picks are wrong, apparently. Hey, that's fair. But yeah, Jeremy Chinn looking rough, but let's give him some time because that's what Junior's imploring us to do. Like, listen, we're still working things out. We're trying to get there. Now, maybe if they would have played a few extra preseason snaps, maybe, I don't know, that would have helped out. I'm just saying.
That would have been nice.
Of
all the guys that have not played well, and if you want to say that John Allen's not playing well, or Dorrance Armstrong's not playing well, Chinn over there, Michael Davis, and even offensively, if there's a guy that you think's not playing, Cosme or whatever, of all the guys you don't have to worry about, I think is Frankie Louvu. I don't think you have to worry about him. He's not one of those guys who you're going to look at and say the problems with him are missed tackles. No, they're not. The problems with him are lack of effort. No, they're not. The problems with him are out of position. No. The problems with him is he's getting bullied. I mean, it's not that. He's just not yet to the point where he's super comfortable to be able to make those plays at this point. So Frankie Louvu is a guy I don't think is the last person that I think you have to worry about on this team, especially on defense.
Well, gents, I think we've talked about our side quite enough. Why don't we head on over? Because we have Anthony from the Orange and Black Insider to talk to us about just how he thinks the Cincinnati Bengals will beat our Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football. All that coming up here on the Cooldown. And I forgot to hit the right button. Wow. Amateur hour here on Ref the District as I failed to hit the proper button to start us off here. We have Anthony here from the Orange and Black Insiders. And welcome, Anthony, to Ref the District here. We appreciate you coming on. I do have applause somewhere here, but I always forget. So here's your cheers.
We get a little bit off our game when we finally win a game.
Yeah, right? I'm wearing a onesie, and I think it's just messed with my head. It's a little going a little crazy here, Anthony. But we do appreciate you jumping on here with Ref the District, of course. So BLEAV podcast out there. Anthony, I have to be honest with you. I did not see Cincinnati being 0-2 coming into Monday Night Football and having a bad beat loss against the Kansas City. It kind of feels like this is the get right game for Cincinnati. But before we get to that part, how exactly are they 0-2 for Stoner? You said the 3rd year in a row. How is this happening?
First of all, thanks for having me on, guys. Good to be on with you, and appreciate it. By the way, amateur hour, you guys got sound effects and clips. I mean, I'm feeling like the amateur on my show, so do not feel like amateur hour over here. But look, I mean, this is a theme with Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow. I think now they're 1-11 in the first 2 weeks of the season since Zach Taylor has been with the team. And basically Joe Burrow has only the only win, and that was in the 2021 season in the opening week. So this is an unfortunate theme. And I know Joe Burrow was asked about this. I believe it was today by Rich Eisen on the Rich Eisen show. Kind of said, "What's the deal with this?" And this has always been a question that's asked of him because of this theme. And it's, a lack of a true offseason, and he's coming back from injuries. There's kind of embedded excuses. There's also the lack of preseason snaps that have been taken by this team and the first team offense. This is a little different though, because even though Burrow's coming back from injury, he kind of said he feels one of the best he's ever felt. The wrist feels fine. He was participating in most of the camp, unlike, years prior where he had the appendectomy and the coming back from the knee and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit of a mystery. And I think, it's possible that the lack of preseason snaps just kind of affects the team. And then, you got a little bit of the drama with the wide receivers and their contract issues and that sort of thing. And, all that stuff kind of maybe permeates through the locker room a little bit, but I do think it is a strong locker room. I think there's a lot of good character in this locker room, and it's not really unfamiliar territory. And we've seen him bounce back in big ways before from 1-1 or 0-2 starts.
So Anthony, is Cincinnati at this point? It seems like from the outside, but are the Bengals at this point Super Bowl win or the season's a failure?
Yes. I mean, I think so. I mean, you are now 5th year into the Burrow regime, right? And this is you still have Chase on a manageable deal. It's not going to be manageable going forward, but you have Chase on a manageable deal for the time being. You did get T. Higgins signed short term, although he hasn't played these first 2 weeks, and that's been a big factor to the 0-2 start as well. But you have those guys. You feel like you've solidified the offensive line finally, and you brought back some veterans that you trust and or other outside veterans in free agency to help out some of the weak spots on the defense. You've drafted pretty well for the most part, really, since the Joe Burrow class of 2020. So at this point, you got to feel like, man, they got to start doing things to keep that championship window propped open. And even though they lost last week, I think that game showed you they're right there with Kansas City, right? I mean, they walked into Arrowhead. They made some bonehead mistakes late in that game, really, and they had that game in hand via turnovers. They frustrated Mahomes in that game. So they've got a formula there. It's just about staying healthy, their quarterback staying healthy, getting into the playoff bracket and doing their thing come January.
So Anthony, outside of the familiar faces, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and now Gesicki, who's leading the team in receiving yards, I believe, is there any other threat that Washington needs to be worried about? Like, is it Zach Moss, or is it that wide receiver? I can't pronounce his last name, but the I starts with the I. Like, what else outside of the obvious is a threat to Washington's defense?
Yeah, I don't know if you're adding the cricket sound effect or if that's
no, it's a running theme here.
Okay. It might. Sorry. Okay. It might. No, it's all good. I had the reason I asked is last night I'm going in and out because I got my man cave moved into the garage, so I had a cricket in here. So I'm like, oh man, is that the cricket bugging the audio here? But no. Look, there are a lot of weapons that are either emerging or, I mean, the usual suspects, right? Chase. There's potential of Higgins being back this week, especially with the extra day there. The usual suspects. Moss is effective. I don't think he's really scary, but he's effective, right? I think if you get Chase Brown, the other running back, they're kind of by committee. Chase Brown, if he gets going, he's explosive. You got to look out for him. One guy, and I'm a little partial because we had him on the program right before the start of the season. Rookie Eric All, tight end. He was drafted in the 4th round. He was he was at Michigan and then went to Iowa. He had some injuries going in. He probably would have been a night 2 pick if not for injuries, and probably a somewhat early night 2 pick if not for the injuries. He came back earlier than expected. Showed off in training camp. Did some nice things in preseason, and now the Bengals have changed some of their personnel looks to include him because he's an effective blocker. And then he can also get out and be an effective pass catcher in the offense. And last week he had some nice plays. They like his development. Aside from the usual suspects, Eric All is a guy I think that Washington fans should probably be start to look at a little bit, because I think they're going to start changing some things on offense and bringing him into the fold and into the mix.
And changing things on offense might need to happen, because I was surprised to see that the Bengals offense seems to be lacking just over 200 yards passing for Joe Burrow per game. And your run game is in the bottom 5 of the league. So Trev mentioned, or Cricket there mentioned, Zach Moss being somebody who might be, somebody who pops out for the Bengals. Why is this offense not seeming to be the high power that most people outside of Cincinnati kind of correlate with them? Is this a Zach Taylor problem?
This is coinciding with the 0-2 start, right? If you look at last year, it was the calf and all, and then it took them, even though they won in week 3 against the Rams on, I believe it was a Monday Night Football game there, even though they won there, that was an offensive struggle. The defense carried them there. They lost the first 2 games of the season, both division games to start the season, 2 losses there. That was just crucial the rest of the way, aside from the Burrow injury. But they struggled through the first couple of weeks, and then they kind of got it going into October. They played a struggling Cardinals team, and they really got the offense going, and then they really showed off against the 49ers in San Francisco. That was a really impressive performance there. This is just kind of, unfortunately, who they are. They're slow starters. I think Burrow, for the lack of reps that he gets potentially in practice because of coming back, and then in preseason, the first week he and the offense did not look well at all. There was missed reads from him that were very uncharacteristic. The Bengals couldn't get much going. They got the run game going a little bit later against the Patriots there, but that game really brought the offensive averages down. I think last week they were far more effective in the passing game. There were a couple of critical drops by Bengals receivers against the Chiefs too that could have inflated some numbers for Burrow there. So, he seems to be encouraged about the direction of the team despite being 0-2. What he's seeing at practice, their resiliency from these 1-1 and 0-2 starts that are so common with them. So, I think it just kind of comes with the territory a little bit, and it's an unfortunate reality for the Bengals players and their fans to kind of face at this point, because it's frustrating that this team, as talented as it is, starting 0-2, and you had a very winnable game against a Patriots team that's kind of rebuilding, right? New head coach. And then you had the game you felt kind of in hand against the Chiefs last week, and you didn't come through. I mean, 151 passing yards from Patrick Mahomes, 2 interceptions, almost a third, another fumble in Arrowhead. Travis Kelce, 1 catch, 5 yards. That is a formula to win every time. So I don't know. I think they're close. It's just that frustrating start to the season.
That New England loss knocked a lot of people out of survivor pools. I know a lot of people who had Cincinnati for week 1 survivor pool winners. But let's move to the other side of the ball, Anthony. Ask you about the defense. Look, last year the defense wasn't good, right? If you look at yards per game, they were second worst, only to Washington, of course, being the worst, and lost a couple of guys. What is the perception there in Cincinnati? It's kind of early in the week to really know too much, but what are they talking about there in terms of stopping all of a sudden this rookie quarterback named Jaden Daniels? Are they talking about how this defense, who can't seem to stop anybody running the ball, are going to stop Washington, who is like 5th in the league in rushing already?
Yeah, 6th in the league, 3-headed monster, Jaden Daniels, Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler. That's a lot to stop with a defense that hasn't been stopping the run.
It's a problem in the run game, and the Bengals are absolutely decimated on the interior of their defensive line. They just signed Lawrence Guy this week, veteran guy who was formerly with the Patriots. So yeah, I mean, they're scrambling right now. Rookie nose tackle they drafted on night 2, at the end of night 2. McKinley Jackson, he's been out. You had Cam Sample, kind of a swing guy you can kick inside and out. He's on IR for the rest of the year. I mean, you had last week Sheldon Rankins. He suffered I believe a hamstring injury, and he was kind of one of their bigger free agent acquisitions. He's more of a pass rush interior guy, but still that interior defensive line is really, really hurting at this point. So they're trying to scramble. And I think also, if you look at last week, and they face a lot of multi-dimensional quarterbacks, not only on their schedule in general, Jaden Daniels included, but also specifically in their division. They've kind of said, you know what, if you want to run the ball, we'll maybe let you a little bit. We're gonna frustrate the passer. And if you look at what they did with Mahomes last week, a lot of guys out in coverage, 3-man front, just, and then, you know, kind of the bracketing by the edges to not, you know, kind of contain, right? And I think that's probably what Lou Anarumo is going to kind of still continue to dial up. It was a little frustrating week one in not a nimble quarterback getting some yards on rushes, on pressures and that sort of thing, and kind of turning something out of nothing. So that was a little frustrating to watch time and time again. But I think they're going to allow some of that stuff to occur and really try and confuse, frustrate the passers. They really have a lot of belief in their rebuilt secondary. Cam Taylor-Britt, if you saw that interception he made last week, it was insane. He's really stepping into a borderline shutdown corner in his third year. You know, they're trying to figure out the other corner spot with Dax Hill and DJ Turner. They like what they've got in both of those guys. They brought in Geno Stone, veteran safety from the Ravens. They brought back Von Bell, a guy they loved and didn't want to get rid of the year prior in free agency. So I think they've got a lot of belief in creating turnovers on that back end of that defense. You saw that last week, and I think they're going to say, yeah, we'll give you some ground in the running game, but, you know, we're going to try and frustrate the passer, create turnovers, and disallow the pass. The Bengals' pass defense in terms of yards per game is pretty good right now.
We've got a couple questions from our live audience. Matt Rowell here asking, is your season basically over if you go 0-3? Is this that big of a game for Cincinnati, a must win to prevent them from going 0-3?
I don't think it's a season over. Obviously, you look at the percentages of teams that go 0-2, 0-3, make the playoffs, how far they go. Obviously, it dwindles greatly. But you look at how the Bengals' schedule sets up here. You know, they've got the Commanders coming in. Commanders are feeling pretty good about themselves, and they're headed in the right direction, I think. But still a game that you feel Monday night at home. It's a Ring of Honor game where they're honoring some of their past greats at halftime in this one. So there's kind of going to be a lot of buzz around this game. Bengals start 0-2. They usually don't, you know, continue down that rabbit hole. So you have that game. You have the Panthers, who are an absolute mess the week after. You have the Ravens, who are really good, but they're 0-2 as well the week after that. You have the Giants. You have the Browns, who are a mixed bag. The Eagles, who are really good, but still a little bit of a mixed bag. So you've got still some games here that you feel like you can position yourself, even if they drop this one, which is a possibility. Even if they drop this one, you still feel like they could rebound pretty quickly, but 0-3 is a big hole, guys. And I guess the only saving grace to that, if that were to occur, would be that none of those games are AFC North games. And that's where they really struggled last year. And that's where their path to the playoffs is really going to be made.
Yeah. So another question from our audience here, Gus Bus was, you know, and you mentioned some of the kind of comings and goings. This one was probably the biggest name. Gus Bus asking, was letting go of Joe Mixon a mistake for Cincinnati?
Yeah. That's a hard one. It's hard because you look at what he did, especially week one, you go, wow. And then you look at the result of what the Bengals did or didn't do in week one, and you say, well, you know, the Bengals did a gamble, and they did a gamble at the running back spot in the interior of the defensive line when they didn't re-sign DJ Reader, who was coming off an injury, but he's a really effective run-stopping tackle. They kind of said, you know what, we're going to piece this together by committee, both of those position groups, and whatever that saying is, the sum of the parts greater than the whole, or whatever that is. They're trying to do that at those respective position groups. Joe Mixon is a volume guy. He is you know what you get statistically from an output perspective, year in, year out from Joe Mixon. I still think he's got probably a couple of productive years left in his NFL career. He's had a good NFL career. I think just what the Bengals are trying to do long-term contractually with Chase, figuring out Higgins, not that he ate a big piece of the pie necessarily, but that position group has been so devalued in the NFL. It's kind of like, you know, we just, we feel like we can replicate the production among a couple of other cheaper guys and make
The
as
money
much
ball effect, right? Get
Yeah,
it in the
yeah,
aggregate.
basically, yeah. I mean, so, but I think it as of now, it is working out more favorably for the Texans than the Bengals. That's not to say that by the end of the season, you could say, hey, that's a win-win scenario for both teams, right? So as of now, I don't want to say it's a mistake. I just think it's a good move by the Texans at this point. The Bengals are, as we said, predictably 0-2 and figuring themselves out. And I think by mid-season, late season, you're going to say, hey, that run game, they figured out what they want to do there, and it's working okay for them.
So Jamar Chase and the Bengals did not reach a deal that Jamar Chase wanted. Outside of the Bengals universe, what is the reason behind that? Is it obviously does he want more money they want to give up? Do you guys have money tied in somewhere else you want to spend, or do you guys actually see you guys making a deal?
Guaranteed money is what it is. It's guaranteed money, and it's when those guarantees get kicked in, right? I think they had some guaranteed money. It was a little lower than, he's using the Justin Jefferson barometer. He's using the CD Lamb barometer, as he should, because he is in that echelon as a receiver. He is using those barometers, as is his agent and whatnot. Unfortunately, the Bengals, people call them a cheap team. I don't think that's really. I think there were times in the 90s and early 2000s when they were really struggling that stigma rang true. But I think if you look at through the Marvin Lewis years, if you look at the star players, they pay them, and they play multiple at certain positions. They have done that. It's been the guaranteed money that's been a sticking issue. And it's a family-owned team, so there's not necessarily as much upfront capital that this team has, this ownership group has, as other ownership groups that, they buy a team and they've got all this capital. This is a family, even though it's a, kind of an NFL dynasty, the Brown family. There's not a lot of extra capital there. That's why they've had to rename the stadium from Paul Brown Stadium to Paycor to get those naming rights. They've had to do some other things to get extra money to pay Joe Burrow, to pay Jamar Chase. And so now you're like, they're killing the draft. I mean, it's their top 5 picks, both those guys, but I mean, they're killing the draft with those picks, and you're happy to say, hey, these are really, really good picks, but you got to pay them. And so the Bengals are trying, and they're working within the confines of kind of what they can do and what they've already paid out or structured for Joe Burrow. So I think this gets done. The Bengals traditionally like to get things done the summer prior to the final year of a deal. So Jamar Chase has this year, and he's got the 5th-year option next year. I kind of was always operating in the mindset that it was always going to be next summer anyway. But according to Chase, the team approached him this offseason and said, we want to try and get this going this offseason. It hasn't come to fruition. Doesn't mean it won't necessarily right now, but I could see this playing out into next year. The problem with that is it's just more money for the Bengals. So they got to, they got to figure that out.
Well, we had one more from the Peanut Gallery, our wonderful comment section here. Hermit having a little fun with you, Anthony. How does Anthony feel about the fact that T. Higgins will be a Commander next year?
He very well could be. And he could be a number 1 on many other teams. I still think there is an outside chance, again, depending on what happens with Jamar Chase and or how they structure something with that, if it gets done, that maybe the Bengals do a double down on the franchise tag with T. Higgins. T. Higgins, it's frustrating because he misses a handful of games, whether it's 2 or 5 or something like that every year. This offense is just different with him. He's tall. He's not a burner, but he's faster than you think. He can play the boundary. He plays inside. He's just a really, really valuable player to this team. And I think he is a really nice security blanket for Joe Burrow. He and Higgins obviously were drafted in the same class there. And a lot of people may not know this, but out in my neck of the woods in Southern California, Orange County, Jordan Palmer runs a camp here with not only incoming rookies, he brings in some veterans as well. But Joe Burrow and T. Higgins worked out together in that COVID offseason with Jordan Palmer, and they really built a rapport before they were even drafted together. And so I think that has been like a blossoming thing. Obviously, they go back to that national championship game too, but this has been a blossoming relationship between the two for quite some time. and Burrow loves him. It's just, how many of these guys can you pay? What can you pay him? And especially, like I said, maybe a little bit more of a cash-strapped team and ownership group than many other teams in the league. I don't expect, unfortunately, T. Higgins to be back next year, but there is an outside possibility that they do a double down on the franchise tag and work. I don't think he would be pleased with that. But
let things get really wild and let you extend T. Higgins and trade Jamar Chase. Now, that would be something indeed. Several firsts coming back to you, obviously, in that one. Let's go ahead. I see Stoner has the pen and pad ready. Let's get your final score prediction. How's this game on Monday Night Football going to go, Anthony?
I think, and this isn't homerism. I just think that based on the comments from Burrow today, they're still confident despite the start. I think Washington's headed in a good direction. I really do, based on just how they've drafted and how they've positioned themselves. I don't think it's as close as Coach Lombard says they're 21-20, but I could see a one possession game. A 27-22, 26-21, something like that. Nothing outrageous. I just think this is that, they start slow those first couple of weeks. They get their backs pressed up against the wall a little bit, and then you've got the star power. You're at home. It's a primetime game. The Bengals under Marvin Lewis were just horrendous in primetime games, and that is completely flipped with Joe Burrow and company. And so I think it's a close game. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement. I think it's going to be closer than most Bengals fans would like to see. But I do think the Bengals, just with the buzz of the game, it being at home, I think they I don't want to say eke out a win, but I think it's probably a one possession win for the Bengals. That's not a disrespect to Washington in any way. I just think that it's kind of that buzzsaw week, so to speak, for Washington, where the Bengals are like, we got to get this thing in gear.
I'm a big believer in the desperate team is usually the team that's going to win. And in this case, I don't think Washington is necessarily desperate to get a win. They're kind of just developing the entire team at this point. And Cincinnati, as we talked about earlier, it's Super Bowl win or bust.
Yeah.
And at 0-2, they're a desperate team and they're at home. And so I'm going to pick 30-24 Cincinnati. Trev, what you got?
For some reason, I feel like it's going to be another close game like last week with them, with the Chiefs, 26-25. But I'm going to go 26-24. I just feel like we're going to start scoring some points on offense. It's about that time. I think Cincinnati's going to come out really, really PO'd and desperate for a win, so they'll start fast. But I think we'll kind of contain them in the second half and squeak out a win, 26-24.
26-24 Washington, Trev.
Yes.
Well, he's always going to pick Washington.
Yeah, he's always wearing those burgundy and gold glasses. This game is really going to come down to whether or not Washington's run game can actually keep it close and keep Joe Burrow off the field. And that's a problem that I asked these two gentlemen earlier, Anthony, is what happens if Cincinnati goes out and scores 2 touchdowns really quickly? Washington's running game is going to be put to the wayside, and you're going to have to rely on Jaden Daniels in his arm. Well, I think can be successful is going to be a tall task for Washington. And I feel like if you look at all the numbers, I feel like that's probably closer to happening than Washington using the run game and keeping this one out of Joe Burrow's hands. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati. And because Washington wants to run off the clock, I'm going to keep a little bit of a lower score as well. I'm going to go 24 to, we'll say 17 for the Cincinnati Bengals as well.
Yeah, there's a little bit of sentiment of house money, right? Playing with house money with Washington, right? I mean, they're not going to be favored to win this game despite the records and everything. So there are a number of Bengals fans that are concerned about this game and what Washington can do in this game, and what you guys pointed out, which is run game, frustrate the Bengals offense, keep them on the sideline, let them not get in a rhythm, and keep, if they keep it close, they've got a good chance.
We've got a kicker. 7 of 7 last week. You never know. Cybertron could do it again.
I got 2 words for you, Anthony. Jaden Daniels.
Yep.
Look out. He's coming.
He looks really good. Well, Anthony, we appreciate you jumping on here. You can catch Anthony on his show, That's the Orange and Black Insider, also on the BLEAV Network, wherever you get your podcasts, you can hear it there. Fantastic time, Anthony. We hope to see you back for the Super Bowl preview when these two teams face off the second time.
Yeah, so. I love it. I appreciate you guys having me on. Hopefully we can get you on our show this week as well, get some looks over the other side of the fence. Hopefully I didn't babble too much, but it's been a lot of fun. Appreciate it, and I think Monday's going to be fun.
Excellent. Appreciate you, Anthony. You have a wonderful evening. We're going to continue the talk here on Ref the District as we have more to do here in the show. It is, in fact, the cool down here on Ref the District. And
yo, I just realized that you changed my name to Cricket.
Oh, you changed?
I changed it I changed it probably a good, for those listening on audio, we have our names up on the screen. I absolutely did. Someone had suggested change his last name to Cricket. Yeah. Or change his name to Cricket. 100% was just like, yep, I can do that actually. So I did that. Now Cricket, why don't you tell us here the title of the cool down on episode 191?
Well, my good lads, the title of the cool down on episode what was that?
91.
191 is Run the Ball.
Yeah.
All of us got a chance to say that one in there. Let's talk about that here in our game predictions. How many rushing yards as a team will the Washington Commanders have against the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday Night Football?
I'm going to go with around between 200 and 220. We had 210 last week, I believe, with that on the ground. 210.
You did predict a victory, so that sounds like a winning number of rushing yards.
I'm going to go over 200. How about that?
Shoot. Yeah. I mean, 200 yards rushing is a lot of yards.
That's a lot of rushing.
It is a lot. I mean, if you can average that for a whole year, you're doing something. So that's hard to say, but I do think the combination of going against a team that can't stop the run and a team that's very confident in running the ball right now and are very confident in their running backs. And then you have the Jaden Daniels factor where he's averaging 65, 66, whatever the number is, yards per game rushing. I think they do get over 200 again. I think Trev's right on it, right on that number, somewhere around 200.
What was your game prediction? Didn't you pick Cincy?
Oh, I did pick Cincy because I just don't think we're going to be able to stop Joe Burrow.
Your money is there. So, okay. Well,
yeah,
that's fair enough. Yeah, I feel like we're going to have a little bit of regression. And I think part of that is going to be the game. It's going to be closer to the Tampa Bay game than it is going to be towards the Giants game where you're playing it close and you're able to use that running game. I still think it's going to be successful. Still think Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler and Jaden Daniels are going to find the room on the ground, but look for this one to be under their season average of 176. I'm thinking it's going to be in that 125 to 150 range is where I'm expecting it. Still successful, but not dominant in the way that it was against the Giants.
Hey, Cricket, I think Jaden is going to get 115 to 120, whatever you just said, all by himself.
$1.
No.
I'm not going to put $1 on that, but
no, I think.
Not willing to put $1? Oh, you're so bold with your prediction that you're not willing to come with $1.
He'll be like 60 to 80 on the ground by himself, and then B. Robin Eckler will account for the rest.
I mean, they're giving up. It's only been 2 games, but they're giving up 160 yards a game on the ground, which is not very good. It's towards the bottom of the league. So they can be run on, especially, again, I think this team this last week, seeing what they can do, against a good run defense. The Giants are a good run defense. Think about the guys that they have up there with Lawrence and Burns and Okereke and guys like that. So I think they said, look, we can do it. Let's just continue to do it. And of course, Jaden is that X factor. He can have 160-yard run all by himself in one play. And so I like it. I think they're going to go upwards of close to 200 yards rushing.
We had Uptown Dre earlier ask us this for predictions, and go ahead and get your predictions in if you're watching us live here tonight. Uptown Dre says, could Jaden have his first passing tub on Monday? #raise hail.
Yeah, for sure.
Could he? Absolutely. How about will he have his first passing touchdown?
And
will?
it's going to be out of 3 players, my prediction, either Noah Brown, Terry McLaurin, or Austin Eckler.
All right. His first touchdown throw is going to be to Luke McCaffrey. That's right, Luke McCaffrey.
For the record, I think it's going to be Luke or Diami.
Hmm.
That's who I think it's going to
Ooh,
be.
little Diami love.
Wow.
I think that's going to be who you're going to see his first
Talk about-
touchdown pass to.
Talk about cricket so far this year. That's Diami. I mean, you
Yeah.
heard nothing from him.
And every year he comes out and he has like one game where you're like, hey, look, there's the Diami that we thought we got in the preseason. All right, let's talk about this defense against Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and apparently Gesicki, their leading receiver over in Cincinnati. How many yards? I mentioned this with Anthony earlier. He's only gotten 212 average over the first 2 games.
Yeah.
How many yards passing is Joe Burrow going to get, and how many of those go to Jamar Chase? Reminder, neighbors just beat up this defense just a week ago.
Yep. Perfect spot for a get-right game for a quarterback. So I'm going to have him close to 300 and 3 touchdowns against Washington with 0 pickles. I think he's going to go for about 296, 3 touchdowns and no picks. He's gonna light it up, and he's gonna have some quick scoring drives, right? Some 4 plays and 72 yards, where one of them's a 46-yard touchdown to Chase, and then Washington's gonna get the ball back, and they're just gonna run, and then Jaden is gonna throw a touchdown. He's gonna run a touchdown, and he's gonna throw his first pickle as well.
All right,
I'm
Matt.
going to go.
Sorry, actually, I did not give you. No, you're right, Trev. I did not give you an opportunity to.
I don't know,
trash our
man.
team.
I think we're just going to shock the world Monday. Have the announcers keep referring to what we did with Mike Evans in week 1 and how we allowed Malik Neighbors to pretty much run their offense. I think we're going to come out and shut down the passing game and hold Joe Burrow to under 210 yards. I mean, if their defense held Pat Mahomes to 151 passing yards, not saying our defense is their defense, it's the NFL. Anything can happen. We're going to shock the world and hold Joe Burrow to under 210 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and we're going to sack him at least 3 times. It's going to be just a completely different team Monday night.
The sacks was actually probably where I was headed to next if Matt didn't have one. So we'll put a pin on that one because we're going to get to Matt's prediction here. How many field goals will Cybertron kick? 7 of 7 last week. How many will he kick on Monday night?
1 of 2. He's going to be 1 of 2 this week.
Oh,
And then
wow.
we're already pitchforks and getting new kicker. And
Jeez, if I said 26-24, my math is not that great right now. That's at least 2 field goals. 2 for 2.
yeah, I said 17, so I got 1, I guess.
Yeah, I'll say 2. He's going to make 2. He's automatic Austin. That boy don't miss. That don't miss.
It's hard to, it's really hard to predict this because I think Matt here is saying that we'll figure out the red zone, but this is an offense, like we said, that moves the ball. So you think that maybe that gives them the opportunity to get more field goals, but then this is an offense that also likes to run the ball and kind of run down that clock. So it's just like you're not sure where they're going to go on the touchdowns, and it's just a very hard, especially this early. This is still, we're still trying to figure out Jaden Daniels. The NFL is still trying to figure out Jaden Daniels. They're still trying to figure out Cliff Kingsbury because this isn't air raid. This isn't necessarily what we saw in Arizona. It's all very new and exciting, and does mean that there's a puncher's chance that Washington can come out victorious. Now, only one of us was wearing that burgundy and gold, and it's kind of sad that I'm wearing the onesie and I didn't pick Washington to win. But I had to be honest on how I feel this one's going to go here for Monday night. So,
and it's okay. And it's okay if they lose. And Trev and I talked about it on our instant reaction. If they lose and Jaden shows improvement, that to me is a win. That's what this season is all about, is just getting Jaden Daniels to improve each week and week as they continue to build a roster.
Yeah, I want to be competitive if we lose. At least
Competitive.
give
That's
a
right.
valiant effort. Like, don't just lay down and let Cincy walk all over you because it's Cincinnati and it's Monday night. But also, it's your chance to shine on Monday night and show the world that.
Don't
hey,
let
we
this
were
be a repeat of the Bears last season.
Oh my
Exactly.
gosh!
Where
Or
we
the
went in,
Michael.
thinking it
or
was
the
going to be a
Michael
pretty good
Vick
game and just get blown out. Let's not have that happen.
That's exactly
Gregory
right.
here saying we need to go get Reddick. We have no pass rush. Now, one of the things about that is the pass rush is creating pressures. They haven't been getting home. How many times will they take down Joe Burrow, and will it be enough to disrupt that offense?
Yes. No offense, but we tore that man's ACL last time we played him. Before that, we blew him up on a quarterback scramble to the end zone. I believe Chase Young, formerly known as Chase Young, blew him up and caused a fumble. So he's got a little bit of nightmares against us, but he's shown the past. If he gets rattled, he gets touched, it definitely affects his game. And he's got that bad wrist too. So I don't care if he says he feels 100%. He has to say that. He's not going to be like, oh, I don't feel that great. He has to say that. But I think it's more to that than him just saying he feels better. So, yeah, we get our hands on him. We get him on the ground a little bit, get him frustrated. Yeah, I think it's a good possibility.
Farrell going to keep that sack streak alive, Brian asks?
Yeah, but also Dorrance Armstrong's going to come to play, too. I think he's been a little
quiet.
A little quiet the first two games. But
we need them to come alive because I predicted on one of the Ask Nathan shorts that Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne would combine for 20 sacks.
20?
Combined.
Holy cow. I hope they
get 20 pressures combined.
I hope they get 20 tackles.
Of course, you can ask Nathan as well on any of our content. Just put that hashtag Ask Nathan. I'll try to get to it and make a short within 24 hours of you posting it. Of course, Monday, I will always post the Monday mailbox. So this one's going to be a little different because it will come out before the Washington game, but it's going to stick on Monday. We are still working out things. We've got a lot going on in our lives. So there's not going to be play-by-play for the foreseeable future. When that changes, we'll be sure to let people know. Instant reaction is also not going to happen this week because it's the Monday night game. I was toying with the idea of getting it to you guys on Tuesday, but I really do have a busy schedule. In case you didn't know, I did get cast as a lead in a play here in town. So I might be missing I will be missing some ref district coming up here fairly soon. So appreciate the support you give us here on the channel and showing up every Wednesday that we stream live at 7:30 Eastern here on YouTube and Facebook. Of course, you can catch us on your favorite streaming platforms afterwards for wherever you get your podcast. Just make sure you like this video, you share our content, and of course, subscribe to our channel, all that stuff that helps us get along. I did not mention earlier, and I failed to, so I'm going to mention them right now, but Don't Sleep Energy is a fantastic company that you can support us by using the code DISTRICT over at don'tsleepenergy.com. It's a DMV company. They sell fantastic energy drinks. If you're into that, if you're not, just go ahead and get yourself a shirt because their logo is actually what is underneath the onesie right now. Don't Sleep Energy. It makes you great. So appreciate everybody joining us here on episode 191. Washington plays Monday Night Football. So we will see you next week talking about that one. But until next time.
Get the finger ready, Nathan. Run the ball.
Be a fan.